Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Um, we're going to be reviewing, by request, Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. And this request comes from Happy Dinosaur 8000. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Happy day to all. And I'm going to wait until he actually gets here. But yeah, this was actually a movie that I do like. And there are a lot of people who do not like the Snyderverse of DCEU. I actually had no problem of it. I thought it was a fresh take. I thought it was a good take. And one of the brilliant things that is done in this movie was the score. So, I see one person is watching. Is that you, Happy Dinosaur? So, yep. There we go. More or less, it is a happy day for me, and hopefully to all. Indeed. I think Kratos God of War could beat Superman. Possibly. But yeah, we're going to get into it now that I know Happy is here. How y'all guys doing? Junebug, Happy. So, Henry Cavill is one of the best Supermen that I have seen on screen. I actually say he is the second. Nobody's going to beat Christopher Reeve. I'm sorry. In my opinion, nobody's going to be able to beat Christopher Reeve. But Henry Cavill does come close. He does do a very good job as Kal-El or Clark Kent and Superman. And it's a very hard thing to do in this, it's because it's not a dichotomy, it's a trichotomy. Because Kal-El is not always Superman. While that is who he is, Kal-El is also a Kryptonian who never got to meet all the other Kryptonians. Now, I don't know if you can Moida Superman. Yeah, I think Christopher Reeve is the best Superman. I think Henry Cavill suffered because they didn't understand the character of Superman. He's not Batman. Yeah, Viggo Mortensen was the original choice for General Zod, and I think he would have been a lot better. That I will agree with. Okay, we're back. God, it didn't go or didn't kick me out. Yes, I know. But yeah, we're going to start from the beginning. I'm going to discuss the film in detail, and I'm going to basically go over the things that I did like and didn't like. Now, Zack Snyder, he is a good director, in my opinion. That is subjective. Objective, well, I really can't say because there is a lot of debate. You can't stop Christopher Reeve, but I still like Michael Shannon for his line, I will find him. Yes, that is actually one of his greatest moments because it shows the will of Zod. It shows his everlasting will to survive and do what he must. Now, the movie starts out with a brilliant score. I believe it is Hans Zimmer. And you know what? I am going to actually confirm by my trusty assistant. Alexa, who did the score for Man of Steel? Hans Zimmer, I believe.
Here's something I found from the article Junkie XL on Wikipedia. In some scores, he has worked with Hans Zimmer on Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
Okay, Alexa, never mind. Yes, Hans Zimmer. Now, I would still love to have seen Viggo Mortensen say the line, I will find him. Yeah. Now, the score is a very beautiful score. It's slightly repetitive, but it doesn't harm the movie. Now, the movie basically starts with, and it's actually something that a lot of people don't realize, is the very first word in this movie is hurry, because that was coming from Lara when she was giving birth to Kal-El, because this was the first natural technology to grow. I'm sorry about that, folks. One of these days, I'm gonna have a better place and I'm gonna have better Wi-Fi. But until then, I gotta go with what I got. I'm sorry about that, folks. And yeah, that was just me talking again. So, Junebug, happy, and I see there is a third person watching, which is probably me. So, hi to Orange Hat. Anyway, the first natural birth is Kal-El. And Russell Crowe and the actress, I cannot remember her name, who plays Lara, I'm sure one of you guys will fill that in. They do a very good job at being regal. However, Lara is a very regal character. And Jor-El is he's a scientist, but he also can fight as well. How you doing, Mar? And yeah, I'm always rolling like always. But hey, man, we all have different opinions on this. But I actually did like Russell Crowe's portrayal as Jor-El. He was kind, yet he was formidable. He was wise, but he also was able to throw down. And after they give birth to Kal-El, and Kal-El gives it or screams his little lungs out, they basically. But you just said that was probably you. Oh, yep. Yeah, I understand now what you meant, Mar. Thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, then you see some of the beasties on Krypton. And this is one of the best things. I would have preferred Peter Capaldi would make a good Jor-El. Well, I don't know his works as best or as much as I would appreciate. I can't put a face to Peter Capaldi right now. But anyway, one of the good things that Zack Snyder did, he gave us an idea of what Krypton was like. He showed Krypton. He showed the life of Krypton on its last day. Now, that is something that he can actually do very well. Zack Snyder is very good at world building, in my opinion. I mean, the flying creature Haraka, I do not know who I do not pay attention to Doctor Who, so I do not know that, folks. But anyway, he also, when he does his movies, he does intricate detail. And that's part of the production team, which is also a very high marks, in my opinion. Now, we all know that he is talking to the Council of Krypton, and that he basically tells them everyone here is dead, but there is still hope, and that he has held that hope in his hands. And if not for the coup that was staged by General Zod, played by Michael Sheen, or Shannon, rather, not Sheen, he would have convinced the Council of Krypton to use the Codex and whatnot. So basically, I'm pretty sure that he would have convinced them. Now, it is a different thing it is a different way of how that happens with the movie that was done with Christopher Reeve, because the Council did not want Jor-El doing anything that might incite panic. They literally forbade him to do anything. Said, you are not to flee the planet. You are not to do anything that will cause a panic to the people of Krypton. Now, this Jor-El, I'm pretty sure he could have swayed the Council. So he goes, he steals the Codex, he brings it to his home/lab, where where Lara has prepared the craft that will take Kal-El to Earth. They then infuse Kal-El with the Codex and all the cells of all of Krypton's future, and they send him to Earth. Now, breaks. After the destruction of Krypton and whatnot, and after he lands in the field, it jumps immediately to the future, to when he is an adult. And this shows the worldliness of Kal-El, Clark Kent, where he's on a fishing boat, and he was about to get crushed by a thing, but somebody gets him out of the way, or tackles him out of the way. And then they get the call that there is an oil rig that's about to blow. So immediately he jumps into action, and he saves the day. He displays his strength, his invincibility, or his imperviousness to flame. And I don't think Peter would have been a good choice there. I mean, he can play characters' roles, but I do not think that he would make a good Jor-El. Honestly, I would have to look at his credentials, basically. But yes. So he saves the people on the oil rig before they die, and he falls under the weight of the collapsing rig. He's in the water, and it then goes to a childhood memory, giving you little bits and nuggets of what it was like for him growing up. And this is actually good because it gives you an idea of what his powers were back then, how he used them, and how he was able to handle it as a kid. This movie did very good layered world building. Now, I believe the first, if I remember correctly, because I watched it I think I watched Man of Steel like a couple months ago. So it's still somewhat fresh. I can remember all the main scenes, maybe not in order, but all of the flashback scenes. I believe the first one was when he was youngest, and that was when he was in school, and his senses were just overwhelming him. His X-ray vision was overwhelming him. He couldn't he was having a hard time focusing. And that's when Diane Lane comes in, or after he locks himself in the closet, and he also displays his heat vision for the very first time in the movie, that is, and whatnot. And he tells his mom, as a kid would say it in the only way he feels he could, the world is too big. And she tells him to make it smaller. Now, yeah, that's true. Now, the casting for Ma and Pa Kent, Diane Lane and Kevin Costner, I honestly think that in this case, Kevin Costner did a good Jonathan Kent. He didn't, and they did change certain things up. Instead of dying by a heart attack, which Kent or Jonathan Kent does in many of the stories that or versions that I have seen where Jonathan Kent is there, he instead dies by the tornado or by a tornado. But he dies saving lives, which is something that Jonathan Kent always was. He was a person who cared for the greater good. And that is why in some scenes where it shows in the flashbacks where Clark saves the kids on the bus when the bus goes into the river, some of the people in Smallville, especially the redheaded kid, I can't remember his name, or his mom is like, this was an act of God, it was providence and yada yada. Basically, your son is basically God in a sense. And in a way, yes, Superman can be seen as a divine figure, because who else can do what he can do, you know? But it was the ignorance of humanity that led to that one thing, or that one outlook. And as his father tells him, or he's like, I just wanted to help. I know you did, but we talked about this, right? We talked about this. You got to keep this part of yourself a secret. And you saw the look on their face. They were scared because they fear what they don't understand. And he then shows in the ship, and he's like, you're the answer, son. You are the answer to, are we alone in the universe? And he explains it as best as he can. And the wisdom of Jonathan Kent in this movie, the job that Kevin Costner does, the acting job that he does, in my opinion, is very well done. He is done in a way that he is very caring, but he is firm. He's not going to coddle Clark all the time. He's trying to get Clark, or he's trying to see how Clark will react to certain ways or certain lessons he teaches him. And it is beautifully done. Like the other scene after the bus scene, there's a scene where he gets dragged out of the car and the other guys are wanting to fight him. And Jonathan Kent comes up, did they hurt you? You know they can't. That's not exactly what I meant. I meant, are you all right? And that shows that Clark wanted to hit the kid. He really wanted to. And this is a kid. I mean, how would you react? Yeah, I would want, or I know that I could easily knock this kid's heart or head off and possibly punch a hole through his chest in a heartbeat. But he's learning that it's not always good to go by your first instinct or your first thought. And it shows that he is learning. Now, there was that scene in the bar where he's defending a waitress who's getting sexually harassed by a truck driver who was clearly drunk. And Clark was going to step in, even though the guy was clearly drunk, but he pulled back after another person reminded him it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And because he was unable to reconcile it, he left. He had to go. He also realized that by standing firm against the guy when the guy pushed on him, that would raise possible flags. But I do like I do like the slight impetuousness of Clark in this case, because he destroys that guy's truck. He puts that, or he impales that truck on so many pieces of logs. It's like, I just love how the guy reacts. He's like, and well, then you know that Clark has to disappear. So he then ends up in the Antarctic, helping people out and whatnot. And that's also when you're introduced to Lois Lane, played by Amy Adams. Her portrayal as Lois Lane, that I wasn't really fond of. I mean, she was a hard-ass reporter. She was ambitious. She was also, or forgot a word there. I don't think Pa Kent advocating for kids' death. Exactly. He told him. And I don't think Pa Kent talking to Clark, it isn't him advocating for children's death, but it's about picking your own battles wisely. Exactly, Happy. And he told him, you got to make choices, and those choices are good guy or bad, Clark. You're going to change the world. And he's like, before I get into the Arctic zone, one of the brilliant things that happened between young Clark and Pa Kent was, he's like, can I go back to just pretending I'm your son? And he tells him, you are my son. You are my son. Because that, to Kent, he raised Clark. But he also told him, but somewhere out there you have another father who gave you a different name. And he's not hiding, he's not lying by omission. He's willing to let Clark know all that he can about him or his other self. But he's also he's raised him the best that he could and whatnot. And then there's that scene that comes later on with the tornado, where Clark is a rebellious teenager. I think at this point he's like 18, 19, and they de-aged Henry Cavill down and whatnot. So I think that's what they did. But anyway, he tells him, he's like, I don't know why I'm not listening to you. You're not my dad. You're just a guy that found me in a field. And that's when Martha Kent, basically, she's like, Clark, and he's like, no, he's right. He's right. We're not your parents. But we've been doing the best that we could to raise you, Clark. And maybe what we're doing right now is not good enough. But we've gone along with it as best as we could. And he was about to reconcile with his father. Now, this is one of the more tragic parts of Man of Steel. The last thing that the last real engagement of conversation before the tornado struck was an argument. So there's regret there with Clark Kent and Superman. He has regret. But he also understood his father's last wish, because he was willing to expose himself. The feelings of everyone else be damned. I want to rescue my father, but his father did the one thing he knew. Put his hand up and shook his head. It's not yet time. They're not ready. Now, this is one of the better scenes because it shows that Clark was learning the lessons as he got older. He was understanding them better. Because after the whole scene in the Antarctic where he finds the ship he's using, or he finds Jor-El, and Jor-El talks to him, gives him the background that he has been searching for his whole life, how he is a child of Krypton, what went wrong with Krypton, and the beautiful quotes that can be taken from this movie. He's like, the people of Earth are, or we knew, or he asks his father, why didn't you come with me? We couldn't, Cal. No matter how much we loved you, no matter how much we wanted to, your mother and I were products of the failures of our world. We could not come with you because there is the potential that we would fall back, or we would lead humanity into that course of action, into the same courses that led to Krypton's fall. He also told him about Zod and whatnot. The people of Earth, and he also then shows him the suit. The people of Earth are different from us. It is true, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. You could be the bridge between two worlds. You can give them hope. And he shows the symbol of the House of El. That's what this symbol means. The symbol of the House of El means hope. And it is the hope that is, I can't remember, or I'm going to paraphrase it basically. It is the hope that every person can be a force for good. And so then the ship relocates from North Arctic Circle to Antarctica, I believe. But that's what happens before. Well, that's what happens before Jor-El talks to him. But anyway, that's when, or he's like, "Why am I so different from them?" And Jor-El explains the powers of Krypton and how a yellow sun. I don't like kryptonite is so outlandish. Ever heard of radon? Yeah. I always thought Superman films are good films to show an adopted family member. Exactly. In some ways, it is a perfect metaphor for that. And one of the things is, he tells him, the people of Earth will strive to follow you. They will stumble, they will fall, but you can lead them into the sun. You can lead them, Cal. And there's no we don't know the limits of your power, so the best thing to do is keep testing them. And you see that he wasn't just automatically able to fly. Superman had to leap. He had to find how his body can focus and then adapt. And you see that he falls. He doesn't get it right the first time. That is one of the ways that tells you that Superman wasn't a Gary Stu, so to speak. And it was brilliantly done. It showed that he was fallible, that he was flawed, that he didn't get everything right the first time. It took him years of having these powers to understand how to use them effectively. So then when he finally gets his powers and everything is finally going on, well, what happens? But the other Kryptonians show up. Now, there are the other things with Lawrence Fishburne. Do I think that it was a woke thing for Lawrence Fishburne to be cast as Perry White? No, I do not. I thought he played Perry White very well. I just wasn't really fond of how Amy Adams did Lois Lane. I thought that she was a good Lois Lane, but she could have been a lot better. Superman was not brilliant. Yeah. In comics, Superman leapt until his will to fly soared big enough to make him fly. Yeah. Well, again, I'm not really a comics person. I do not read the comics. I wish I had when I was younger, but I never got into them. I couldn't find them and whatnot. We live up in the Adirondacks where you can't really find a comic shop. But anyway, when people are exposed to him, and now that people know that the world is not alone, because Zod sends the message down to all of the world in all of their languages, you are not alone, and we are looking for Kal-El, and you have 24 hours to turn him over to us. It would stay stable. Anywho, yes, Zod shows up, and I hope it's not. Yeah. Anyway, one of the interesting things that Clark does when he's feeling conflicted about this is he goes to a priest. Or looking for the alien? Well, he gulps. He's like, "Do you know why they want you?" "Nope, but I can't, but I know that Zod can't be trusted." Because he was already forewarned about Zod's intentions by his father. And that is kind of a cheat, but it's not really, because he actually does go to meet Zod. He turns himself in to the humans and he surrenders himself. But because Lois was also captured, because she had contact with him, she's a national security threat, you got to guarantee her safety or I'm not going to turn myself in. But he also wants his story to be out there a little bit too. That's why I think he wanted to talk to her, because he was now ready for them to learn things. Give the wrong impression, except that it didn't happen as he wanted it to. So he goes, and the atmospherics on the Kryptonian ship make him weak, or as weak as a human, because on Krypton, now, there. Yeah. Where was I? Basically, the atmospherics changed. Superman's weak, and they also or they basically pull the mind meld where they go into his mind, learn as much as they can, and Zod talks to him. Zod losing to Superman is like General losing to a cop. Kind of, yeah. I mean, there's technicalities and whatnot, but yeah. But anyway, it was an interesting dynamic because Zod was now basically giving his thoughts, or he's basically presenting his argument as to why Krypton fell. And you could tell some of it's not true, some of it is true. He's not telling Kal-El everything, but he also is not ashamed at what his goals and purpose was with Earth. And he tells him, if Krypton lives again, what happens to the people of Earth? The foundation has to be built on something. And that's where he realizes that Zod and him are not going to meet, or not going to see eye to eye in this. Now, Lois has the key that allows Jor-El's artificial intelligence to propagate. And so she puts it in the ship, and Jor-El basically effectively takes over the ship and weakens the Kryptonians even further because they're not used to human atmospherics. And you see that one female that's just a real bitch. She's played by an Asian actress. I can't remember her name, but she goes after her, and Lois escapes, but Jor-El teaches her how to stop the Kryptonians and send them back to the Phantom Zone. Now, she's in an escape pod that got damaged, so it's up to Superman to save her, but he also has another small interaction with Jor-El. And that was every time Russell Crowe is in the scenes, he has a commanding presence, but also a gentle presence as well. We wanted you to learn what it was like to be human first, so when the time came, you could be a bridge between two people. And then he shows his son Lois and how she needs his help. You can save them. You can save them all. And so he then gets down to Earth, but Zod and Faora are already at the Kent farm looking for the Codex. And that's when Superman goes in. Now, this is where a lot of people actually did have a problem with him, or with the movie. Basically, how Superman goes full brutality on Zod. Well, here's the thing. When it comes to any foe that is very strong, yes, Superman is reluctant to kill, but he's not afraid to show his full strength when needed. That, in my opinion, anyway. And I actually had no problem, because what would you do if somebody was threatening your mom, huh? What would you actually do? I'm telling you right now, if I had the power and somebody who was a very dangerous threat was threatening my mom, I'd go ape shit on him. I would. And that was actually a very good moment. It's where he's just plowing him through the fields and pushes him through a couple silos and then a gas station. The acting here is where it takes interest, because now we're getting into the military aspects and whatnot. I mean, you see it sprinkled throughout, of course, but now you're understanding how a military would probably react to an extraterrestrial threat. We're going to shoot first, ask questions later. And we're going to shoot all of them because we don't want a freaking intergalactic war being fought on our planet. We do not care that the guy in blue is a good guy. They're all threats. And then you see the big freaking guy, I can't remember his name, and you see Faora basically fighting Kal-El, and she gives her ideology. that humans are weak, therefore they are not important. They're scum. They're insects. And she even tells him after he gets the better of her, you won't win. For every human you save, we will kill 1,000,000 more. Superheroes will kill if given no other options. That is correct. And that is something that is done in this movie. And that is another thing that pissed people off. Because in the Christopher Reeves movies, he crushes General Zod's hand and also has them imprisoned and sent off to the Phantom Zone, I think. But the thing is, in this movie, we are exploring reality. And these movies have a sense of reality that is grounded into it. It's more grounded than the spectacles that we see in the shows and whatnot. We're showing that these characters can have human moments even though they're not human. So yeah, it only takes off from there. The Kryptonians are basically waging war, and they use the world engine to try to terraform the planet and whatnot. Now, I actually liked how they brought in the A-10s, because the A-10s are, even though they're the oldest operational air asset, they are still very effective. It is a humongous minigun with a plane built around it and heavy long-range munitions. But you see that they're no match for the Kryptonians. I mean, well, the big missile was, but that still is not enough to kill them. As long as they're in sunlight, as long as a Kryptonian is in sunlight or has the yellow sun, it's going to be exponentially hard to kill them. Now, that's actually going to play a part in the Goku versus Superman live stream that I have planned for Friday, by the way. Because I'm pretty sure somebody's going to bring that up. Now, moving further in, Zod gets a taste of what his senses being overwhelmed. And when he goes down to secure the Genesis chamber, he knows that if he's going to survive here, he needs to adapt. And he does it rather quickly, because he was a warrior that was bred for battle. So he must hone his senses quickly, and he is able to. Now, you also sense that when him and the AI of Jor-El are arguing, he's still steadfast in his purpose, but he still also has respect for Jor-El. And that's why he tells him, tell me, you have Jor-El's memories, but can you feel his pain? But when he finally erases Jor-El, you see that it bothered him to do so. He and Jor-El were friends at one point in their life. But Jor-El would not go side with him, so unfortunately he had to do what was necessary in his mind. The more Kryptonian skin exposed to sunlight, the more powerful the Kryptonian. Exactly. And that is, but also you got to take into account in this universe, the Snyderverse, Zod was pretty much on par with Superman, strength-wise. And he had only been exposed to the yellow sun for a couple days at best. And the pain that he expresses after pretty much the whole freaking city is wiped out, he basically tells him, he's like, and now I have no people. My soul, that is what you have taken from me. And he's like, I'm going to kill all of them. All these humans you love, I'm going to kill them, take all of them from you one by one. And he realizes, it's at this point that Superman realizes he can't hold back in this fight, but he still does. You get a sense that he still holds back. And as this fight progresses, you see that Zod becomes stronger. And that is another brilliant level of storytelling it shows you that the warrior caste of Krypton is quick to adapt, and their powers are formidable. As you can, or when you see Zod's heat vision for the first time, it is very thick, it is very powerful. Unlike the pinpoint accuracy and the pinpoint power and effectiveness of Jor-El or of Kal-El. I mean, yes, Kal-El actually uses it against the other two Kryptons, Feor and the big guy, but it's still thinner beams, where you see Zods are much thicker and more powerful. When it comes to the solar power that they have, Zod is more powerful. He is a warrior caste. He was bred for battle, where Superman is basically jack of all trades and master of none of a Kryptonian. He has, or his destiny is not preset. So it goes to show you that he struggled. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that again. I do not know what happens with a blue sun. Happy. So I'm sticking to the movie. Now, it's like he tells him on the rooftop, I was a warrior. I was bred for one purpose. Or I trained my whole life to be where I am. Where did you train? On a farm? And it shows just how quickly he can adapt with the flight and all of that. Now, when he gets down to the final bit after they crash through the place and they send frickin' debris into the atmosphere and they crash into that station, if you love these humans so much, you can mourn for them. And that was a beautiful moment of acting too, because it shows that Zod will never stop. He can't be contained. How you doing, Cayman? We're doing a requested review. Now, we're covering most of the bases first before I give the official review. Now, as Zod is firing off his heat vision to try to kill these humans, and Superman is holding him back and has his hand basically in a headlock like this, ready to kill him, it basically tells you that, or he tells him, stop and don't do this. And he's like, not going to stop. You're going to have to kill me or basically he's telling him the only way you're going to kill him or stop him is to kill him. And so, because he has no choice, that's exactly what he does. Well, as I commented on Abu Nas's video yesterday, you become what you are by the people you meet in your life. and Superman is a farm boy that is more used to his surroundings than Zod. You are absolutely right, Mar. You are absolutely right. And it's because of his interactions with the people of Earth that Clark became who he is, where Zod has only known war and being a warrior. So after he kills Zod, he gives a cry out, or he gives out a scream of anguish, because he didn't want to kill Zod. He wanted to try to convince him that there is ways that they can coexist. But unfortunately, Zod would not see that. That's the character of Zod. He sees what he wants, and he will go after it. Be damned anything else. He's intolerable to anything else that he sees as weakness, and he sees Superman as weak. His character, his moral character, is weak. Now, we then get the whole scene where Superman knocks the drone out of the sky, which I thought that was a touching little scene. The whole drone out of the sky. He's like, "Are you effing stupid?" And it's like, "It's one of your surveillance drones. I know you're trying to find out where I hang my cape. You won't." And then he asks him the obvious question: "How do I know? How do we know that you won't act against?" I'm here to. Okay, we're back. Good. Oh, I tell you. Anyway, so yeah, he basically says, "I gotta do it on my terms," and that's the dangerous thing. If you allow somebody with that much power, and yes, he is very moral, to have that much power without a check, it's dangerous. Because what if he acts, or and they explain that in BVS. What would happen if Superman decided or lost Lois? Well, he would go full tyrant. He would go tyrant. Well, being a warrior doesn't mean you can be beat by a farm boy, as training is not always the best. There are lots of examples of human history where farmers beat armies to defend their home. Exactly. That is very true. And this movie is no exception. Now, now that I've gotten all that stuff out of the way, I'm now going to give my official full review, or scoring for the review. You would lose sight of what's important. Exactly, Cayman. Exactly. My official objective without bias, meaning I'm not going by my opinion here. I am going by how the story and the movie's own qualities. The movie is a 3 out of 5. That is a 60 out of 100. That is technically a failing grade. Now, because the writing could have been better, the story, because of the flashbacks and whatnot, it can make a person get confused about the time jumping and whatnot, because they don't tell you how far back they're jumping, how many years this is, how many years this is. Not unless you see the eagle-eyed credits roll and whatnot. The score, fantastic. The score was one of the best parts about this movie. The acting of Superman was good. It was the acting of other support characters that were not so good and whatnot. That was where the movie suffered mostly, was support characters. The story itself kept me engaged, but this movie does get a failing grade of 3 out of 5. Now, the subjective score is 4 out of 5. I liked it. I mean, there was a couple cringe moments with Lois and whatnot, and that is what takes away a point. Moviegoer, I think where I do not deconstruct the film, moviegoer, this movie is entertaining. It's 5 out of 5. And if you're not paying attention to all the different flaws and whatnot, you're going to enjoy the movie. It's a Superman movie. Who doesn't like Superman, you know? So yeah, folks, that is going to be my official review by request for Man of Steel. I thought the movie was very good in my own opinion. My subjective opinion, I liked that movie. And that's something that I actually disagree with Jeremy and Geeks Gamers about. But one thing that we did agree on was the score was very good. He just didn't like the movie itself. But we can both find the common ground that that the score of the movie was very well done. Now, and that is something that we actually talked about on Exaggeration Nation's channel a few months ago. But anyway, folks, that is going to be my official review by request. Thank you to Happy Dinosaur for being the first person to open into the requests of a review. If you guys want me to review a movie, I will do a review of the movie. I take requests for movie reviews. And right now, I am doing a show review for Naruto by request of a friend of mine in Washington State. And right now I'm in the 6th season, so out of 9 seasons. So when I'm done with Naruto, I will give a review on that as well. And I will possibly even do it as a live stream. So anyway, folks, I am going to start wrapping it up. Y'all know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Get this movie out, or get these videos out there for people to see. Share them as much as you can. Always stay humble. That is a new staple to my outro. Be humble. Engage with your followers as often and as much as you can with them. Because if your subscriber count goes up like a rocket or like Superman, you should review the Teen Titans cartoon. I will work on that. I will work on that, Cayman. Because I actually did like the cartoon of Teen Titans. I just wish that they had continued it. Now, but yes, always stay humble, because if your subscriber count shoots up and you get lost in the fame and whatnot, you're going to neglect your fan base, and then it's gonna crumble. I will do my absolute best to engage with all of my fans and all of my followers. That is my pledge to you guys. I do my best with what I got. I only got a phone and this Kindle here to do my videos. So I know what it's like to be humble, and I know what it's like to struggle. So until I get better equipment, I really can't do whole screen sharing and whatnot. I mean, I can allow others to screen share, but that's about it. Anyway, folks, stay tuned for this Friday night, where I'm going to be talking Goku versus Superman. I got Mara Jade. I got Annihilus B, the Chad. I got Sean Stackhouse and Comics Chat. These guys are going to be joining me on my panel, or joining me as panelists to talk this movie over, or to talk that fight over between Goku and Superman. and I'm going to, or because I have 6 people going in, I'm going to see if, or I might have to bump one out, but if not, I'm going to bump myself out here and there to let other people have their, or have their moment to present their arguments and whatnot. Anyway, folks, thank you to Cayman Rider, Mar Krell, Happy Dino, Sora 8000. You're the one who requested this, so big props to you, man, for being my first requested review. And Junebug, anybody else? Nope, it's just those folks. Thank you guys for watching this live stream review of Man of Steel. And if you guys have any reviews that you want me to do, I will be glad to do it. Send me a DM if you're on Twitter for something that you would like to see reviewed, and I will do my best to review it. And I will do it in time that I can do it. It won't be immediate. It will take some time because, like I said, right now I'm reviewing Naruto. So when it comes to shows, that will take a while because I'm going through the whole show to review. So anyway, folks, that's going to wrap it up. This has been Orange Hat Reviews. I'll catch you all on the next one, and always remember to stay humble.